All right. So I don't know if all of you, none of you saw Friday's Finest that went out this past week. I think it went out late Friday, so you may not have seen it till over the weekend, if you saw it at all. And if you're not getting my Friday's Finest, make sure that, hit me up to make sure I've got you on the database list so that you're receiving it. I sent it out late Friday, and I thought I better go over it because if you haven't seen it, or even if you have seen it, it may not hurt to go back over it, because after it went out, I started getting hit up a lot over the weekend from the real estate agents that saw it and said, oh my gosh, that's what we need. And so Friday's Finest basically said, do you get this question? Or maybe you're asking this question, and it says, is this the right time to buy? Should I wait for rates to come down? That's the big question. Should I wait for rates to come down? Now, I'm curious, if one of your clients, selling client or buying client, says to you, should I wait for rates to come down? What is your response?
No. How long do you have?
What's that?
How long do you have?
How long do you have?
No.
No.
They're not coming down.
No. So if they say to you, should I wait for rates to come down? I'm going to give you something that I put it, and if you need this, I can send it to you. But it's going to point out some things that I think are of value to help people arrive at their decision. Because if someone says to me, should I wait for rates to come down to buy a house? Well, what I want to say to them is what Jessica said. No, of course not. But then, if they make a decision not to buy or not buy, they're basing it on my response. I don't want that. I want them to arrive at it at their conclusion. So, because believe me, if somebody makes a decision based on their conclusion rather than my conclusion, more likely that they're going to take action. So I'm going to give you some information and some, you've heard Mike talk about it on the Connect Wednesdays, and if you've been in sales for any length of time, you'll hear this over and over again. The very, very best way to move people in the direction you want to go through is not by telling them, it's by asking questions. There are books, sales books written on the value of asking questions, and you're thinking, how can I get a person to move from here to here by asking questions as opposed to giving them the direction? Well, you and I would think giving them the direction is the easiest thing to do. Unfortunately, it's not. So how do we move them from point A to point B? And we're going to do it with a series of questions. So if somebody says, should I wait to buy until interest rates come down? Let's look at a series of questions. First question is, do you think home prices are going to go down in the next 12 months? That's the question that I ask people. Do you think home prices are going to go down in the next 12 months? Now, I don't know what your thought is on that, but most people are saying, I wish they would, but I don't think they're going to come down. I'm just hoping they don't go up as fast. That's the most common response that I get. I wish they'd come down. I don't think they will. I'm hoping they don't go up as fast. All right, so then there's a second question to that. So if you don't think prices are going down, is it reasonable to assume that they're not going to go up at the 15 to 18 to 20% like they did last year, and maybe they'll go up 5% or 8% or maybe as much as 10. I kind of hope they stay around 5 or 6 or 7, personally. Virtually every single person that I speak to, and I and I ask them that, they all say, I think that's reasonable. I said, okay, fine. Let's just use the lowest number possible, 5%. Second question, before I take them down that path, second question is, do you know when the last time interest rates were this high? Anybody?
2019.
What's that?
2019.
Close. The last time interest rates were this high was October through December of 2018. Now, when I sent out Friday's Finest, I said it was a decade ago, because prior to those 3 months, October, November, December of 2018, it was all the way back to 2010 before interest rates were as high as they are right now. So it's about a decade, other than those 3 months. Now, people say, well, wow, I didn't realize that. Let me show you why that's significant in a moment. Then I ask them a third question. When was the last time interest rates rose this fast? Because bear in mind, we were down in the low 3s or 3% even back in November and December. And here we're looking at some ridiculous interest rates. When was the last time they rose that fast? Anybody? All right, 1992. Wow. When they rose that fast. Now, most of you were not in the business back then. I was. Mike was. And I remember I was in the mortgage business and I saw, it was like, what the heck is going on? I'd been in the business a couple of years. What the heck is this? And I've seen interest rates rise and come back, and I've seen them rise, never this fast, other than 1992. So why do we ask that? Now, then, and I'll show you why in a moment. Now, what is the cost difference between an interest rate of 4.25% and an interest rate of 5.5% if you're getting a mortgage for about $400,000? So those are the 4 basic questions that I'm going to ask someone. Do you think home prices are going to come down in the next 12 months, or do you think they're going to go up? When was the last time that interest rates were this high? Do you know the last time interest rates rose this fast? And what is the cost difference between a rate of 4.5% and 5.5%, or 4.25% and 5.5% if you're getting a $400,000 mortgage? Now, here's why we go through those. All right. If you use the assumption interest rates that home prices are going to go up approximately 5%, and this is the conversation with the individual. It takes a moment to go through it, but again, you're going to move them from A to B with their conclusion, not yours. So if we have a $400,000 loan, a $400,000 home, and the home price is going to go up 5% between now and 12 months from now, how much equity gain is there in that 12 months? 5% gain on $400,000. How much is that? How much? $20,000. So waiting 12 months, if you make the assumption that home prices are going to rise a meager 5%, means there's an equity gain of $20,000. All right? Everybody agreement? All right. So now, the difference in payment between a loan, a $400,000 loan at 4.25% versus 4.5% versus 5.5%. That's a pretty big gap. But let's just say you're going to wait to see if they come down by 1.25%. The difference on a $400,000 loan is $300 a month. $300 a month. So should I wait? Well, maybe. You're going to save $300 a month 12 months from now if interest rates come down to 4.25%. That means that you'll save $3,600. And like I said in Friday's Finest, drum roll. How many of us would spend $3,600 if Jessica said, I'll give you $20,000 if you give me $3,600? How many are going to take her up on that offer?
I'll take it.
Everybody. Everybody. So doesn't it make sense that if someone says, should I wait for interest rates to come down? The answer is, what, are you kidding me? Of course not. Why not? Well, let's ask them questions that move them from point A to point B. Let them arrive at that conclusion. If they see it, mind you, they said they agreed it's a potential 5% gain. And you and I know it might actually be more than that. But that's $20,000 gain. It'll cost you today $3,600 more to get that loan. But that means you're going to make over $15,000 in the next 12 months.
And if the interest rates go down, you could always refi it.
Thank you. This man knows what he's doing. That is the next part of it. So now they've made their decision that it's okay to buy now. How many of us have ever heard of buyer's remorse? You buy something and you think, I wonder if I did the right thing. So now they've made the decision to go from point A to point B. Now I want to give them some ammunition to make them feel better about their decision. And I go down the path that Jay was going, all right, to the other two questions. When was the last time rates were this high? In the last decade, only one time. Which means we're at a peak in interest rates. Not to say it may not go higher, they might. But we're already at a peak in the last decade. When was the last time they went up this fast? You've got to go back 30 years. Now, something I didn't put in here. If you look at the chart on interest rates in the last 14 years, interest rates went down 4 times. Well, they went down more than that, but there were 4 specific times they went down. They went down in 2008, they went down in 2012, they went down in 2016, and they went down in 2020. What is the one thing consistent in those 4 years? Presidential election. So history says that when we have a presidential election, this is not political because it makes no difference if a Democrat or a Republican gets in office. In the last 4 elections, now granted, 2020 was exaggerated because of the pandemic, but in the last 4 elections, that year, interest rates went down. What's coming up in 2 years? Presidential election. I don't know if history is going to repeat itself, but there's a pretty high probability it might. And if it does, and we're at a peak at our interest rates right now where we haven't seen only one time in the last decade, is there a probability that what Jay said may happen, interest rates come down, and you can refinance out of that high, stupid mortgage that you had to get in order to get into your home today? So through a series of questions, we take them from point A to point B. After they arrive at their conclusion, we give them some additional information to remove any possibility of buyer's remorse. And hopefully, they will turn to you and say, let's go out and find a house. Now, how many of you think that's actually happening today?
People asking that question?
No, how many that people are still buying houses and people are trying to do that? What's your thoughts? Okay, everybody's, yeah, we're doing. So what's happening? People are still buying houses. I mean, contracts are still coming in. It's not changing. Now, are there as many offers as there were 2 months ago? Probably close. I mean, it's crazy what we're seeing out there. So what that says is, should I buy now? That 5% that we said home prices might go up in 12 months, honestly, is probably not right. It's probably closer to 10. So the fact that we don't take action today because of a fear of a high interest rate is, I mean, I would never say this to a client, but it's foolishness, because the interest rate can't go up enough, at least within reason, cannot go up enough to make up what home prices are going up and will likely continue to go up in the next 12 months. And unless somebody's got this epiphany and has facts that say that home prices are going to take this plunge in the next 2 years, then the time to buy is right now. Don't fear the interest rates. They're not going away. Now, interest rates are up. There's no doubt. I mean, we're locking loans now at 5.5. I locked one on Friday at 5.875. Again, lower credit score on some of those, but we're in the fives. That's very realistic. And the 10-year T-bill this morning hit its highest point since that December point in 2018. So it's not going down. At least it doesn't appear it is. Seems like every single day I look at the T-bill and it's doing this. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is like craziness. But again, even if the interest rates go up, no fear. Like Jay said, they may come down and a person can refinance out of this crazy mortgage at some point in time when it makes sense. And like I've pointed out before, if people don't have a lot of cash and want to preserve cash, hey, put down a little bit less money, pay some private mortgage insurance. When interest rates come down, we'll not only refinance to get you a lower rate, but we'll try to get you out of PMI or at least lower PMI. So whatever you end up with today is very likely a worst case scenario for the years to come. So that is another thing that says time to act is now. All right, questions? Anybody? Anything? All right, thank you. Appreciate it.